right. I think my microphone is on. I have the urge to lean in here. All right. Well, thank you. I'm glad to see so many of you. I know, first I'll introduce myself. My name's Catherine Stoner. I'm the Mossbacher Director of the Center on Democracy, Development, and the Rule of Law, and I'm a political scientist and senior fellow here at the Freeman Spogli Institute, where you're sitting, and also who has fed you this afternoon. I teach in political science and also international relations, and a big shout out to my class that is here. We're going to leave at 1:15 promptly because I know that members of my class in Understanding Russia are going to want to run with me down to the Hewlett Teaching Center to be there in time for our 1:30 lecture, and I suspect others will also need to leave around then. I'm here to introduce our four speakers and our moderator, and then I will sit down quietly. And again, if you see me dash out at 1:15 and some people come along with me, we're just running to class there. So please pardon us in advance. We're here on what is actually a sad occasion, which is 3 years since the start of the full-scale invasion on Ukraine, a war that has displaced hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians, of course, resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands on the Ukrainian side, perhaps more. We don't have official figures in terms of how many Ukrainian soldiers have died, but on the Russian side, we know that it's somewhere between 100 and 150,000 is the estimate of dead Russian soldiers. It could actually be much higher. And we know that there have been about 1 million casualties, at least on the Russian side. 3 years. And I know my colleague and friend Michael McFall, when he gets up to moderate, will say, I hate this, because he said it last year and he said it the year before, because we are once again here. In those 3 years, however, despite what we often read in the media, the front line has actually not changed since December 2022, when Ukrainian forces bravely took back Kyiv, Zaporizhia, and other occupied territories. And actually, since that time, only about less than 1% of land has changed hands since December 2022. So Ukraine is not losing. Ukraine is at least defending what it had. It remains in Kursk, in the northwestern region of Russia that it bravely took in August as a counterattack against the Russian military. And although the Russian forces have regained about 50 to 60% of the land that was originally taken, they have not managed to eject Ukrainian forces there. And so, as we come to a difficult time also in global politics and with the recent, I will say, shocking and of course wrong statement on the part of the American president that President Zelenskyy of Ukraine is an authoritarian leader. He is of course not. He was duly elected. Elections could have taken place or should have taken place last year for the Ukrainian president and also for the Ukrainian parliament, but unfortunately, as you may have just heard and remembered from what I said a moment ago, Ukraine has been attacked by Russia, and that war has continued for the last 3 years. Ukraine continues under military law as a result, and so elections are on hold. If they could hold them, they would hold them, because Ukraine, although unconsolidated and imperfect, evidently just like the American democracy, is still a democracy. We are particularly delighted on this sad anniversary to have our four panelists back with us, and I think at least 3 are online. Maybe the fourth is there, I'm not sure. No, okay, so at least 3 are online, and all have spent time at the Center on Democracy, Development, and the Rule of Law in one program or another, and at the Freeman Spogli Institute. So first, I'll introduce Oleksiy Honcharuk, who is a former Prime Minister of Ukraine. He served as the 17th Prime Minister from 2019 to 2020. during which he introduced important policy initiatives in Ukraine, including the institution of a process for privatization of business and trying to combat black markets. He also launched the Anti-Radar Office to respond to cases of illegal property seizures. Before serving as Prime Minister, Oleksiy was the deputy head of the Presidential Office of Ukraine and was a member of the National Reforms Council. He was here in 2021, just before the war broke out in the fall quarter, as the Bernard and Susan Liotard Visiting Fellow at the Freeman Spogli Institute, based at CDDRL. I know joining us later will be Serhiy Leshchenko, who is formerly a journalist with Ukrainska Pravda and a member of the Ukrainian Parliament from 2014 to 2019. He first rose to political prominence, as did actually many of our guests this afternoon, during Ukraine's 2014 Maidan Revolution, now known as the Revolution of Dignity, and he has continued to serve in government and in Ukrainian civil society. He remains an advisor to President Volodymyr Zelenskyy's chief of staff, working and living in government bunkers during the start of Russia's invasion and siege on Kyiv in 2022. He is an alumnus of the 2013 class of what is now known as our Fisher Family Fellows program that takes place in this room every summer for 3 weeks. Also joining us is Oleksandra Matviichuk, who is the founder, there she is, of the Center for Civil Liberties. She is a human rights advocate and was recognized with the Center on Civil Liberties of Ukraine as a co-recipient of the 2022 Nobel Peace Prize. The mission of the Center for Civil Liberties is to protect human rights and establish democracy in Ukraine and the OSCE region. The organization, and this really doesn't do it justice, develops legislative proposals, exercises public oversight over law enforcement and judiciary, and conducts educational programs, but more recently, as I think Oleksandra will tell us, she has also been documenting war crimes committed since 2022 in Ukraine by Russian forces. Sasha Ustinova is our fourth guest. She is a member still of the Verkhovna Rada, Ukraine's parliament. Sasha is, since the beginning of Russia's invasion in 2022, has met tirelessly with lawmakers in the United States to advocate on behalf of Ukraine, including addressing the U.S. House of Representatives in February 2022, shortly after the invasion began. Before her government service, she was the head of communications and anti-corruption in healthcare projects of the Anti-Corruption Action Center, one of the leading organizations fighting corruption and fighting for corruption reform in Ukraine. I'm pleased to say she was also a visiting scholar with the Ukrainian Emerging Leaders Program at the Center on Democracy Development and the Rule of Law from 2018 to 2019. So thank you again, Sasha, for joining us, and great sweatshirt, by the way. And finally, I will surrender the microphone to the moderator of our session this afternoon, Michael McFall, who is the director of the Freeman Spogli Institute for International Studies, and again, the patron of your lunch. He is also the Ken Olivier and Angela Nomalini Professor of International Studies in the Department of Political Science, and he is the Peter and Helen Bing Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution. He joined the Stanford faculty, I shouldn't say, but it was after the dinosaurs, but before the 21st century. He is also an international affairs analyst for MSNBC, and so you may see him from time to time there. He served for 5 years in the Obama administration, initially as special assistant to the president and senior director for Russian and Eurasian affairs at the National Security Council at the White House, and then as U.S. ambassador to Russia from 2012 to 2014. So, Mike, the microphone is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we jump in, and maybe the other two will join us while I say this, I just want to say, for those of you who don't know, our Ukrainian participants today are all alums of actually 3 different programs that we have. There's Oleksiy. Good to see you, Oleksiy. 3 different programs that we have at FSI. One of them that dates 20 years back, inspired, in fact, by the Orange Revolution. And our idea and our theory, supported by the way, Ukrainian entrepreneurs for our leadership program, is that Ukraine is building, this is before the war, this is before the horrific, barbaric invasion by Russia of the sovereign country of Ukraine. But the theory was they were building a new democracy and a new part, trying to be part of Europe, and we wanted to be a part of that. And I just want to say to all three of you, and Leshchenko, if he shows up, or maybe he's there, I just am extremely proud of the fact that I know you all. I had the honor to get to know you when you were on our campus, but I've now witnessed and observed what you've been doing for your country, and we are just extremely fortunate to be connected to who I consider to be just heroic individuals in the world. So thank you all for joining us today. So you're not confused, we have two Oleksandras here. So I'm going to call one Lesya, that's Matviichuk, and the other one Sasha, so that they know who I'm talking to, because that's what we called them when they were on campus, okay? And Lesya, I know you have to drop and then come back. So the first question for everybody, but I'll start with you, Lesya, is just, you know, we're all reading the news, and we'll get to news and policy, but just on a personal basis and on an emotional basis, tell us what the mood is like for you, your family, and your country on this tragic anniversary.
It's very difficult to be in large-scale war for 3 years, taking into account that the war is going on for 11 years already, because to live during large-scale war means that you live in total uncertainty. You can't plan not just your day, you can't plan your next several hours. To live during large-scale war means to live in constant fear for your beloved ones, because there is no safe place in Ukraine where you can hide from Russian rockets. Just 2 days ago, Russia sent 263 drones against Kyiv and other peaceful cities in Ukraine. But what is not very visible for international audience, that despite of this burden, despite of the mood, Ukrainians will continue to do the right thing. We literally have no choice, because Putin openly says there is no Ukrainian nation, there is no Ukrainian language, there is no Ukrainian culture. For 11 years, we have been documenting how these words converted in horrible practice. When Russian troops physically exterminate active local people in occupied territories, mayors, journalists, priests, teachers, environmentalists, any active people of community, how they banned Ukrainian language and culture, how they destroyed and robbed Ukrainian cultural heritage, and how they take Ukrainian children to Russia, put them in Russian education camps, told them they're not Ukrainian children, they're Russian children, their families, their parents refused from them, and they will be adopted by Russian families who will bring them up as Russians. So we literally have no other choice, because if we stop resisting to Russian aggression, and we'll have no security guarantees which can really stop this Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, it means that we will cease to exist. It will be no more us.
Very sobering. Thank you, Lesya. Sasha, over to you. First, tell us about your daughter. How's she doing? And then tell us about the mood that you're in and the mood of your country.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to tell everyone who doesn't know me. The reason Mike is asking me about my daughter is I was 9 months pregnant when the war broke, so I literally had to deliver a month after the full-scale invasion. So if you decide to ever plan anything in your life and take it seriously, as I am for years, sometimes it doesn't mean you're going to pick up the best hat, which I thought I did before the full-scale invasion happened. So her name is Victoria. She's living a normal life because it's not in Ukraine, unfortunately, right now. She's in Austin, Texas, and it becomes more and more difficult to explain to her why she cannot go home with mommy, why she can travel to Washington and go to the meetings, and she does go to meetings with me, the congressman, But I'm trying to explain her she cannot go to Ukraine because it's too far. But I'm still struggling to explain her what the war is and why people would want to kill other people, that some people are bad. And this is difficult to explain in 2.5, almost 3-year-old. And if we talk about what the life in Ukraine is now, honestly, it's complicated, especially during probably the last week after the Munich Security Conference, where we met with you, and thank you for having time to talk to me and explain what it is going on in the US politics. People are frustrated, but on the other side, they are united. So the problem is people do not understand how we thought the United States, being our biggest, not just ally, but a partner, could do what we see is happening now. And again, it's not about the natural resources deal, right, that is trying to be negotiated. Putin not being called a dictator. What happened in UN today when in the United Nations, US was literally pushing other countries not to vote for the Ukrainian resolution during the 3rd anniversary of the full-scale invasion. That was very complicated to explain to our own citizen. The only thing I can tell you, I've never seen the ratings of President Zelenskyy going so high and so fast as I saw when Trump attacked him. Because what Ukrainians have in common is we can attack our own government, parliament, presidents, but nobody else can, because it's for us to decide who will be running the country. And when we see that somebody else does that, the best thing it does is brings the rating of this politician, and now it's President Zelenskyy basically up. So there's one thing I would really like to explain to everyone who's watching us right now. When we talk about elections, a lot of people do not understand this is not about the elections that we are trying to be pushed to. It's a trap. It's a trap set up by Vladimir Putin, and I'll explain you why. To hold the elections, Ukraine needs to leave the martial law. This is a demand in the constitution. So this is written down in the Ukrainian constitution. You cannot amend the constitution during the wartime. So basically, if you want to hold elections, let's say there is a ceasefire and we need to announce the elections, we need to leave the martial law, which means around 400,000 people will leave the army because they will be demobilized. And we need to open the borders, which means a lot of these people would want to go see their families, because we have almost 7 million people abroad in Europe. And it's mainly women with their kids while their men are fighting at the front lines. And I can understand them why they would want to go in 3 years and see their families. What then Putin would do? Yeah, invade Kyiv and take it almost barehanded, because people will be thinking about the ceasefire, reuniting with their families, and all you need to do is to strike in the right moment. And this has been very obvious to every Ukrainian, and it's been very hard to explain to every American, because what they're telling us is, why don't you want to hold a fair election? I'm like, well, we would love to have fair elections, but only when the war is over. And second thing, and the second scenario we're looking at, if the first one fails, there will definitely be intervenes into the elections from Russia. We already saw that in 2004, when Yanukovych, the former president, was elected. Well, he wasn't elected, it was another president who was elected, but he was appointed by Russians. And that's exactly what's going to happen now at the elections, because more than 50% of people would not be able to vote, because we have, again, 7 million outside, 1 million in the trenches, over 11 million internal IDPs that will not be able to vote. So basically, more than half of the population will have no right, not even to run, but to vote. And what it means, it's going to be very easy to fake the elections, and that's what Russians are going to do. They're going to find where to put the money into their own candidate. And this person is not going to look pro-Russian at the beginning. Look at what has happened in Georgia, for example, with Ivanishvili. But they will definitely try to put someone both in the parliament and in the presidential seat who will sign any peace deal or any actual treaty that this government and this parliament and the president will never do. So again, I think, and I'm sure Lesya will support me in that as the civil society, it's not an election, it's a trap. And we in Ukraine understand that clearly. And we would like to explain it to all of our partners outside.
Thanks, Sasha. I don't see our two other, oh, there we are. Oleksiy, over to you. your mood, the mood of the country. And then my next question, actually, so you all know, my next question will be about the reaction to this pivot that President Trump has done. And my third question will be about the future of peace negotiations. But first, just give us a sense of your spirits, Oleksiy, and the spirits of your country.
Thank you very much, Mike. I have not very good connection here, so I'm so sorry for this future.
We'll take you for whatever minutes we can. Just keep talking.
Yes.
We'll take you for whatever we can. If you drop off, just keep coming back. Thank you for being
here. Thank you very much, Mike. Look, I think that, of course, Ukraine is still ready to fight. I think that we are still strong, and if you look into the numbers from a battlefield, we will see that, of course, the situation on the battlefield is very complicated, but Ukraine, every single day, every day, doing an incredible job. So and doing a very big damage to Russian forces. So I believe that, and I see and I understand a little bit what's going on in the Ukrainian tech and drone industry. And my prediction is that in 3-6 months, Ukraine can double the damage to Russia on the battlefield from a technological perspective with the drones. But the time is very expensive now, because every single day, every single hour, Ukrainians are paying for this time with the lives of our best people, of our soldiers, or people who are protecting our land on the front line. So that's why it's extremely important now to understand that this war is not only about Ukraine. This is not a regional conflict. This is not about the territories at all. The war, and it's very important to remember why exactly this war started. And Russia decided to attack Ukraine because Ukraine decided to be a free country, a free nation. We decided to be a democratic country, a free people. So, and what we see now that this spiral of violence in the world, that the authoritarian, the number of countries with the strongman and with the leadership style, with the authoritarian style leadership, are growing. This part of the world are growing, and it looks like this is a very good moment for democracies, first of all of Europe, first of all of democratic and free and responsible part of US society, to be united as never before. Because this is a very dangerous moment, I believe, and we should be aware that, and today's actually vote and today's position of United States in the United Nations, everybody, I believe, is shocked about the position of United States delegation, about United States representative during the vote in the United Nations now. So this is a perfect description, perfect example, and perfect sign for us, for people of a goodwill, for people, for a free people, for people who are standing the democracy in the US, in Europe, and across the world, that this is a very good moment. This is a best moment, like today, not tomorrow, but today, literally, to do everything possible to make sure that Ukraine is strong enough to resist, even in this very complicated situation. Because it will, so this is exactly the moment like never before. Ukraine, one more time, Ukraine is strong, is still strong. We are still doing a great job. In January, Ukrainian only drone and technological forces damaged or destroyed more than 50,000 different Russian targets on the battlefield. Just imagine this number, like more than 15,000 different targets on the front line. So Ukraine is still doing incredible damage on the front line, is still doing a great job to stop Russians. But obviously, it's not enough, because we are now fighting not against Russia, but against all authoritarian world. You know probably that Iran, North Korea are helping Russia. That's why my main message that we're still strong, we are still fighting, we are not ready to give up, we are not going to give up. But this is exactly the moment when all the people, all free people, all the people of goodwill should do everything possible to support Ukraine in this very complicated time. Because this is, I believe, this moment. This is exactly today. This is the moment when you should do everything possible, literally everything possible to support Ukraine in this very complicated time. That's my main message.
Mike, if I may add just a second, because you were asking about the mood, and I was sitting in my headphones and I couldn't understand what was going on, but they just launched a massive attack on Kyiv, and I have air defense sitting right across my apartment. So at first I couldn't understand, is it like the New Year's Eve, or is it Putin congratulating us with the 3rd anniversary of survival? So this is what the mood actually is, because we had about an hour ago all of the main delegations leave Kyiv, because we had a really big representation today from all of the Europeans. So once they got them on the train, they started attacking and shooting Kyiv.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that, Sasha. Leshchenko, to you next, and we've already started on this part. And if Serhiy Leshchenko shows up, let me know, guys, in the back, and we'll jump to him right away. But talk a little bit about this shift under President Trump. I know that in conversations with Ukrainians before the election, there was some genuine exhaustion with President Biden and his approach to support. I think when Trump won, there was a feeling of hope that maybe he could change things and actually do a deal with Putin, because he has this special relationship with Putin. And that mood lasted until last week, I think. At least for me, I was trying to be optimistic of it. Let me just say personally, before I turn to your reaction, that how you feel it personally and how you think the country is. I am shocked. I am appalled. I am embarrassed as an American to see those votes today. We are voting with the most horrific dictators in the world. I know for a fact that many people in the Trump administration do not agree with that. And yet it is happening, and it is a mystery to me. I've already been on television in Ukraine twice this morning, and I was asked to explain it, and I cannot explain it. But I know it's wrong, and I want you all to know that I'm not the only American that thinks that. There was a poll taken in our country just a few days ago, and 81%, and by the way, just for the Americans in the room, how many polls have you seen of Americans where we got 81% on the side of any issue? That never happens in our society today, but 81% said that they do not trust Putin. Only 9% agreed with President Trump to trust Putin. So I just want you to know, you heard the applause here, but this is a debate in our country, and we are not a dictatorship. We are not a monarchy. This will be a lively debate that I hope will not end in tragedy. But help us first, just the sense, are you as shocked as I am, or maybe I was just too naive? You're more sophisticated about these things than I am. And then the second thing, Oleksiy started to talk about it, but what would you recommend people that are worried about this pivot? What can we do? Leshchenko, over to you first, then Sasha, then Oleksiy.
Three things to comment. First, yes, it's really absurd situation to have aggression, but to have no aggressor. And this is something new in international law. But let me focus on two important things. First, Putin started this war of aggression not because he wanted to occupy just more part of Ukrainian land. Putin started this war of aggression because he wants to occupy and to destroy the whole Ukraine. And to go further, he wants to forcibly restore Russian Empire. He dreams about his legacy. His logic is historical. And the problem is that even after 3 years of large-scale war, despite all human losses, Putin doesn't refuse from his goal because human life is the cheapest resources in Russian state. And if we want to achieve peace through strength, it means that we have to design security guarantees. A real security guarantees, not something like Budapest Memorandum, which make Putin not just to postpone his goal to achieve for several months or for several years, but impossible for him to achieve this goal. So security guarantees is crucial in order to achieve sustainable peace. And second thing, President Trump told that he started this peace negotiation because he cares about people dying in this war. So if President Trump cares about people dying in this war, he has also to care about people dying in Russian prison. I spoke with hundreds of people survived Russian captivity. They told me horrible stories, how they were beaten, raped, smashed into wooden boxes, their fingers were cut, their nails were torn away, they were electrically shocked through their own genitalia. And that's why it's surprising for me that we hear political statements about natural minerals, about elections, about possible territorial concessions, but not about people. We have no idea what will be with more than 20,000 of Ukrainian children illegally deported to Russia. What will be with thousands and thousands illegally detained civilians subjected to daily torture and ill treatment? What will be with Ukrainian women under Russian occupation under constant threat to be raped? What with people in occupation in general? They have no tools how to defend their rights, their freedom, their property, their life, their children, their beloved ones. Russian occupation is not just changing one state flag to another. Russian occupation means enforced disappearances, torture, rapes, denial of your identity, forcible adoption of your own children, filtration camps, and mass graves. So if President Trump cares, it means that we have to return human dimension and start to discuss what will be with people.
Thank you for that.
I just want to emphasize one thing that Oleksiy has said. Over 20,000 deported children. Can you imagine right now Stanford University, including not only students, but every professor, being kidnapped and sent to the Russian jail or sent to the Russian family to be raised there? This is what is happening right now in Ukraine. And I understand that's a little bit sometimes far to people when we talk about Mariupol, but when I'm telling people this is half of the size of Washington, D.C., it was totally eliminated. People were dying on the streets with no help, just bombed, and all they were praying about is to die fast. If somebody told me that could be a reality even 3 years ago, 2 days before the full-scale invasion, I would never believe that you can do that in the heart of Europe, which Ukraine was always. A lot of people could not understand the statement about calling Zelenskyy a dictator, and that really hurt us. And again, that brought his ratings up a lot. But basically accusing a victim of being responsible for being raped and tortured, this is something unbelievable that we had never seen during diplomacy before. So my biggest hope is there is something more that we don't know about that can be negotiated out of that. And that this is a very big show that is being played. But unfortunately, the statements we're seeing now is very controversial. And the only good thing about that is people are uniting again in Ukraine, and Europeans are getting united. I've never seen Europeans being so scared as I saw them at the Munich Security Forum talking about, because they actually probably the first time in their history since World War II that they realized it's not about Ukraine and our survival, it's about their own security, and that they're going to be next. And there will be no Uncle Sam coming to save them. They are by themselves. So basically they are with their money and our army. Because just to compare, the size of the united army of all of the European Union is less than 150,000 people. We have 10 times more. We have 1 million fighting at the front lines right now. And we're still struggling to defeat. So that's why they understand we will be their own shield, and we will be the army fighting for Europe, and all they need is to pay. The question is to what extent the Americans might shut down the programs, and we're not talking about USAID or shutting down the PDAs and not delivering weapons. The question is to what extent they will be able to shut down sharing of all of the information, of intel, or even selling stuff to Europeans so they could support us. But we can see that Europe is uniting, understand that it's their own responsibility now, and nobody's going to come and help them. The problem is if they had realized that 3 years ago, ramped up their production lines and be independent now, it would be much easier for us to win the war now. But unfortunately, we see that not a lot of the countries had been taking seriously the war. At the beginning, we were told we're not going to survive 48 to 72 hours. And even within the next year or two, when we had been going around asking to ramp up the production lines of the weapons, because there was elections in every second country, especially last year, nobody wanted to take that step, and which is very unpopular to tell your own country, which is not at war, that you need to spend more on defense. Now, this has changed. We can see Europeans, we had all of the leaders almost today in Kyiv. We had Justin Trudeau come to Kyiv to literally sit with next to President Zelenskyy at the G7 meeting. And we do hope that there will be more actions on that battlefield. We also should not exclude that there is a 300 billion Russian assets that has been already frozen, and all they need to do is to seize those. If we have that, now that will be 3 times more than the United States had provided for us, not only in weapons, but all total support. So that could end the war pretty fast. And we have big hopes for the new elections in Germany, because we've seen that the Christian Democrats got the majority, and we already saw probably the former chancellor saying that he will be very supportive on Ukraine, and there is also a chance to provide Ukraine with the long-range missiles like towers. And we've been asking for years for those from Chancellor Scholz. So on one hand, it's really sad what is happening, and the statements especially that Ukrainians see. On the other side, we can see that this is a new step in reality, not only in Ukrainian war, but in reality and in the foreign relations. And hopefully the Europeans can unite, because if they don't, that will be a disaster for everyone.
Thanks, Sasha. I want you to know, Sasha, that despite what President Trump says, for those of us playing the long game, we still look forward to the future where the United States will still rejoin the democratic world and the transatlantic relationship and establish a deeper relationship with democratic Ukraine. But I understand analytically that right now that seems very unlikely. Serhiy and Oleksiy, the question was, Serhiy, first of all, good to see you. Glad you could join us.
Thank you.
We just were at Munich together a few days ago. Actually, 3 of the 4 of us were in Munich. Serhiy, the question was, give us a sense of the reaction in your country to the latest statements from President Trump. And Oleksiy, will go to you, and then after that, I'm going to open it up for questions.
First of all, thank you for taking me on the board of this webinar. Sorry to be late. It's a train station. I'm sitting in the lounge of train station in Kyiv, and Oleksiy was also here just a few minutes ago. We have very unusual crowd. So we have the full launch of prime ministers, presidents. Just next door from us, I made this photo of Justin Trudeau sitting with Boris Johnson. You can see them if you maybe. It's just kind of next door from here. And very, very unusual mood because we had these two events today in Kyiv, Yalta European Strategy event and the meeting of president with the counterparts from our partners countries. And since all delegations going by train to Kyiv and from Kyiv, there is very unusual. So Prime Minister of Sweden sitting and you have to spend time with him because there are too many another delegations and we're trying to handle it. And
Serhiy is on the board of directors for Ukrainian Railways, so he has an obligation to do that, not just an interest.
But it's also a big privilege and pleasure. Prime Minister of Spain, Sanchez, just left the train station a few minutes ago, and Ursula von der Leyen, the President of European Commission, she was in previous trains. So we have 3 trains full of European leaders within 2 hours leaving Kyiv. And this is very, very important. It's a sign of solidarity. This is very vocal that we have all Baltic and Scandinavian countries leaders in Kyiv. Prime Minister of Canada, maybe his last trip abroad and on the position. We had the Spanish Prime Minister, which is very unusual because Spain was always very distant from Ukraine for many, many years, always focused on the agenda of Northern Africa and the region. And this government is very pro-Ukrainian. We appreciate it a lot. And in these circumstances, it was very visible that no American flag on the event today in Kyiv. And of course, we understand the reality, and this reality is complicated, but at the same time, Ukraine is looking forward to cooperate with new administration on mutual interest, not to be just the donor of money, but to be part of a system of security for the whole region. And in these circumstances, I believe Ukraine is not only recipient of financial support or weapons, but also contributor of security. This is what is very much appreciated by European partners now, because one day, I don't know what can happen if Putin challenge NATO and attack small town on the Estonian-Russian border called Narva with Russian-speaking populations there. Will alliance support the member Estonia because of this attack or not? And in these circumstances, the only one experienced army able to defend Europe is the Ukrainian army. That is why this is a new reality we are living now. And frankly speaking, my understanding is that Ukrainians are not very shocked with what's going on because we went through so many shocks within the last 3 years. Now, Europeans are much more shocked than Ukrainians. This is my opinion on what's going on, the general feeling. But, I'm kind of in this adrenaline now because today is very, very long day and a day full of this very warm meetings with our friends from the whole Europe.
Great, Serhiy. Oleksiy, do you want to say something on this question, and then I'm going to turn to the audience?
Mike, I couldn't agree more with Serhiy. Absolutely sure that this is a new reality. And as we perfectly know, the perception is reality. It means that now we have absolutely different perception. So it's obvious that there is no the security infrastructure, global security infrastructure anymore. It's obvious that NATO is not an answer anymore for European, at least European countries. And I want to repeat my message one more time. So Ukraine is strong. Ukraine is still strong, is not strong enough to stop Russia if we are alone. But I think that this is exactly the moment when the Western world, the people from the free nations should stop the too little, too late policy. So I think that all these 3 years, Western world was too slow. It wasn't like it was everything good and now everything is bad. No, now it's obvious that the efforts of the Western world, the free world, like made over these 3 years were not enough. So Ukraine never received everything necessary to win the war. We never had the real, I believe, the real help to win the war. So our allies over the last 3 years were doing everything to help us survive, not to win the war. And now it's absolutely obvious that to stop a war and to achieve the sustainable peace, I would say, this is to stop a war with a victory, not with the capitulation. So this is the moment for a free world to understand that their policy towards Ukraine, towards this war, was false. So it was a bad policy. Too little, too late. It was a bad policy. It was a mistake to not to give Ukraine everything necessary to win. And now I hope that the situation, the crisis, become obvious and the perception will change. Change enough to show that too little, too late policy will lead us to this third world war. That's why I hope that now Ukraine will have a real 2, 3, maybe 5 real allies in the purpose of winning this war. That's why. That's what my message is. And now, one more time, Ukraine is strong. In January, Ukrainian forces destroyed or damaged more than 50,000 different Russian targets. It's more than average European army. So it's only 1 month. And now the free world, the real Ukrainian allies, should realize that Ukraine is not a victim anymore. This is ally. This is ally, and only together we can achieve the sustainable peace for Ukraine and sustainable peace for Europe. Thank you, Mike.
Terrific. I'm now going to turn to the floor. Catherine, I was going to look to you for a first question, and everybody else will need you to line up at the microphones. I think our colleagues will be able to see you there. I'm actually not sure if that's true, but you could go wherever you want. Yeah. And I know they're floating in and out because of bad connectivity, so we'll just take whoever we can get.
So hi, everybody, again. You can sort of see me. Hi, Serhiy.
Hello.
My question is about minerals and negotiating for the U.S. to, I'm not exactly sure, own them, mine them. Can one of you talk a little bit about this idea? And, you know, one idea, I guess, one potential positive that could come from such an idea is if American businesses were in there mining those precious metals, then perhaps that, in a sense, commits the U.S. to secure or protect those businesses, and perhaps that would be good for Ukraine. But I'm really just trying to put a shiny gloss on this. Can you guys just comment on this idea and whether you think it would go anywhere in a negotiation?
I think your defense business has to be much more interested in anything related to Ukraine than any of the companies who potentially, if the war is over, might be extracting something. Because this is where the real contracts are for tens of years, because Europeans are scared to death and they're investing everything they can in their own and our defense. So if you notice how your stocks, the stocks of the defense companies, like, I don't know, like Raytheon or Lockheed dropped right after Munich, that was very, I think, damaging, not for the economy, but for the whole sector. So I think this one thing that everybody underestimates of how much money can be done in Ukraine now, especially in terms of technologies. updating technologies. And trust me, if your drone has never been tested in Ukraine, and I think Oleksiy Honcharuk can talk more about it, because I don't think a lot of people probably know watching him, but he's one of the founders of the Sea Babies who sank the Russian fleet. So we have the technologies.
Sasha, can I interrupt just for a minute? Because the connection's not so good.
Yeah.
Honcharuk's company is the company that destroyed the Russian fleet. I'm overstating it. I shouldn't have said it that way. It has been said, I don't know if it's true or not, that company has done that. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood what direct contributions our colleagues are making to this war effort. Sorry, Sasha, go back to you.
Trust me, he is partially he was partially very much involved, and I've seen those Sea Babies, and we actually took even the U.S. delegation from Congress and Senate to see those, and they were really impressed by the results that a few people can organize at the beginning. So what I'm saying is, we will see how this deal ends. I already saw the latest tweet from President Trump saying about a few tens of billions of dollars that the U.S. has invested. So we're already not talking about 300 or 500 billions. So I think there are negotiations going on. And again, from the perspective of our country, you should understand that we are happy to invite American business, but with this business, we're happy to invite the guarantees. And we don't see a reason signing anything if there are no guarantees, security guarantees standing behind that. And again, it should not be, we just want to come and get it. We want to do investments as well, and we want to partially control that as well, because this is our land. Thank you.
And Sasha, just a technical question. Sasha is a member of parliament, by the way, of the opposition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Will you have the ability to ratify and approve this document if it is signed by the president, or is that not necessarily a step that's necessary?
It is a step, and actually that was the first time that Trump talked about it today publicly, because I don't think a lot of people realize that. But yes, we will have to approve it and ratify it in the parliament. That's why I keep saying that it will be very difficult to persuade 400 parliamentarians to vote for something that will literally give up Ukrainian land or Ukrainian independence.
Thanks for the clarification. Oleksiy or Serhiy, do you want to add anything to this, or go to other questions?
Ukraine considered this as something new in the agenda. When Ukraine get rid of nuclear weapons, we believe that America gonna protect us no matter what. Then we had the Biden administration, which was very slow with reaction, and they started to provide us proper weapons 3-4 months after the war started. I just remind that on the beginning of the war, February 2022, we were provided mainly with American Javelins and Stingers, which are good, but not really so important for the first stage of the war. And Ukraine clean up Kyiv and Chernihiv region, 2 big regions, with mainly Soviet weapons. And only after the occupation of Kyiv and the Chernihiv region, plus Sumy region, America started to provide with howitzers, M777 and HIMARS, which were very important for second stage of counteroffensive. So Biden administration was good but slow, and always we did not understand when we're gonna receive the weapons. But when new administration, current administration came to power, we recognized that everything was provided to Ukraine was not for free, and it kind of very hybrid, lend-lease scheme. But it was never presented to Ukraine as a lend-lease scheme. We, of course, would be happy if it's lend-lease. We would take much more weapons and much faster, and it would let Ukraine to be much more effective with our defense operations. And maybe Ukraine would never have such big territory occupied if it would be lend-lease, when we, of course, have to return money or weapons, but we could take more, and we could take what we really needed at that stage of the war. But now we see this as a very unusual turn of the bilateral cooperation when we have to pay back with our minerals. Okay, we in negotiation. We have a negotiation team from Ukrainian side led by Andriy Yermak, person well known by Mike and myself, and we are negotiating to see what Ukraine can get on return of this money collected in the special fund of our minerals. It's very, I can say, very general discussions now going on. We don't have even a final draft of the document. We have an exchange of proposals, but nothing is finalized yet. We are very eager to see what can be given to Ukraine. If Ukraine provide minerals or rental payment from these minerals to this special fund, what will be guarantee for Ukrainian security? Will we have American weapons provided or American soldiers on the ground, which very, I think, low chance to happen, or another system of defense of Ukraine? I don't know, intelligence data or information from the space. Difficult to say. But what I can just repeat that Ukraine is very mobilized in the mindset, and if something happened, Ukrainians are not in the big shock anymore. I think nothing can shock Ukrainians within next 50 years. Yeah, Ukrainians are prepared for everything, for any development. That is why let negotiation team work and see what the final proposal will look like. As I saw tonight in Axios website, there is a frame document which gonna be signed by Secretary of State Rubio and Foreign Minister of Ukraine Sybiga. But I saw our Foreign Minister Sybiga kind of 40 minutes ago on the train station. He was also on this farewell ceremony of Ursula von der Leyen. He said, why I should sign it. So I think it's still unclear who will be signatories from both sides. It's still process of negotiation. That is why I'm very, very careful with the prognosis that it's going to be signed this week. I'm not sure it's going to be signed this week, but negotiation ongoing every night. Let's say that it's a level of National Security Advisor Waltz and Chief of Staff of President Zelenskyy, Andriy Yermak, these main negotiators on this stage now.
Great. Let's go to questions. And if you could introduce yourself, and if you have a specific question for a specific person, let them know.
Thank you, Mike. My name is Carl Dockhorn. First off, thank you for sharing all the insights that you have, and the articulation of why elections are a trap was really helpful to me. Right now, as we're entering into perhaps a period of negotiations, words and perceptions are really important. And an innocent phrase could cause problems. And I often hear in the news, land for peace. And this seems entirely inadequate, because it's not land for peace. There's millions of people living on that land. There's millions more who call towns and villages and cities in that land their hometowns. What's a better phrase, and how do we get it to be used instead of land for peace?
Lesya, why don't you take that one first, and then Sasha.
I want to remind this logic which has Putin and his goal in this war, because he doesn't want just one more part of Ukrainian land. It's very naive to think that he sees his name written in world history as a person who started large-scale war in order to occupy Avdiivka or Bakhmut. I'm sorry. I'm sure that majority of Russians have no idea where Avdiivka or Bakhmut in the map of Ukraine. Frankly speaking, majority of Ukrainians before large-scale war started also has no idea where Avdiivka or Bakhmut are on Ukrainian map. So this is ridiculous. He doesn't want just Avdiivka or Bakhmut. He wants to achieve his goal, to occupy the whole Ukraine, and he's okay to occupy part by part. part by part, because he sees Ukraine as a bridge to Europe. And this is something which now European politicians start to understand more clearly, that they are safe, their country are safe, their people are safe, only because Ukrainians are still fighting. So this is a myth which I want to ruin, but I'm very grateful that you're asking this question and frame it in such human way, because for Ukrainians, it's not just battle for territories. We are fighting for people who live there. It's our relatives, it's our members of families, it's our friends, it's our colleagues, it's human beings. We can't leave them alone for torture and death. We have no moral right. I will illustrate it just with one case from our database. We have 81,000 cases like this in our database. This is a case of children's writer Volodymyr Vakulenko. He wrote beautiful stories for Ukrainian children, and entire generation of Ukrainian children brought up of his daddy's book. During Russian occupation, he disappeared. I know his family personally. His family hoped to the last that he's alive, but like thousands of other Ukrainian civilians are illegally taken into Russian captivity. But when Ukrainian army liberated Kharkiv region, we found mass graves in a forest near city Izum. And we found dead bodies, men, women, and children in these mass graves. And in mass grave with the number 319, we found dead body of this children writer. You can ask me, why Russians killed the children writer? The answer is clear, because they can. Because this is what Russian occupation is about. And I think that it's immoral and beyond any human norm, not just legal norm, to speak only about natural minerals, but not to speak about people.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. So we only have 10 minutes left, and there's 4 people standing here. And I know there's a class that starts at 1:30. So why don't everybody ask their questions? And if our Ukrainian colleagues could just take notes, and then we'll just do one last round where everybody can answer whatever they'd like. So please.
Good afternoon. My name is Loreto Quevedo de Mandal, Loreto Cuties Brigade, Silicon Valley. I'm a community and political organizer. And I'd like to ask the idea of having a demilitarized zone and a peacekeeping force probably headed by UK and France. What do you think of that? Thank you.
Okay, great question. Sir?
Yeah, I'm Jason Zajac. I'm a long ago Stanford IR alum. Thank you very much for putting on this and the previous discussions. So we talked a little bit about the outrageous but somehow not surprising comments of the Trump administration. And what I'm curious about, where is the response, and maybe Ambassador McFall, this is really a question to you, from the United States foreign policy establishment? Where is the full-page New York Times ad from every former Secretary of Defense and living president saying how ridiculous it is, and actually challenging, unlike today's New York Times that talked about President Zelensky's response and how his actually directly accusing Trump of lying might be bad for Ukraine. That was in today's paper, and that it's not the right way to deal with someone like Trump. Where is the right way for, and in the US, people standing up?
So what I'm going to do, that's a great question for us, and I will organize a conversation about that question in the coming days. I want you to know that I'm out there every goddamn day, every goddamn minute. I have death threats on my phone every day, and very serious threats to my well-being. I want you to know that because that's the country we live in now. That may be part of the explanation why others are not there, but we need to do that because we need to stop this policy. This is not, with all due respect to my Ukrainian friends, this is not just for them. It's in our national interest that we do not line up with Belarus and Russia and North Korea. That is negative consequences for our future security and prosperity. And oh, by the way, I actually think our country cares about values. This notion that all we care about is mineral rights and business deals and hotels on Gaza, that's not the America I know. I do a lot of talking about America. It is not the America I know. But thank you for that. We'll do that separately. We have very precious time left with our Ukrainians. So 2 more questions and then back to our Ukrainians in Kyiv.
Hi, thank you for the fascinating conversation. I'm Katavan Chincharadze. I'm a foreign policy analyst from Georgia. And my question is actually about the Russian propaganda and how it has played out in Ukraine. Through my work, I've across with the idea that the United States has used Ukraine to weaken Russia, and this kind of thinking is really prominent in Cold War generation Soviet-born citizens, and not so much in younger generations like myself who were born after the Cold War and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So I want to know if this narrative has reached Ukrainian ears, and how do you respond and how it has played out during the war in the community? Thank you.
Great question. Last question.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for being here today. My name is Markus Finke. I'm from Munich, Germany. And my question is, I think you rely a lot on public support, public opinion, and especially in Germany in the recent election, we saw that AfD is rapidly gaining traction in Germany, and a lot is probably caused by misinformation in the media within various countries. So my question to you is, how do you feel generally about the second front in terms of disinformation, not just within Ukraine and in Russia, but especially within Western democracies? Thank you.
All excellent questions. Thank you, everybody. To close us out, who would like to go first?
I can do.
All right. Sasha first, Serhiy second, and Lesia third. How about that? That'll be our order.
I'll be really specific and short about the peacekeeping force, for example, from UK or French. If there is a real deal done, maybe, but I can hardly imagine right now the peacekeeping force from UK when they have 70,000 people in the army. We have 1 million. So unless there is a real deal reached, they cannot be. It's just impossible to implement with those numbers. Disinformation, I think Lesia would be the best one to talk about it. I can just tell you that I think Ukrainians are the best to fight the disinformation right now, and we can clearly see whether it's a Russian narrative or not. And at some point, I think when the war is over, we will be teaching the world how to fight with the Russian disinformation, how to fight with their trolls and bots. And we've already done that before, and how to actually defeat Russians.
Thank you.
And on Germany, I'm sorry. And on Germany, we have been watching closely the elections in Germany because honestly, I understand that will be one of the biggest foreposts for supporting Ukraine. And they've changed a lot since the last 3 years, because I remember Olaf Scholz during the first year of invasion, and now when you see German society literally supporting, even sometimes providing towers for Ukraine, it's really impressive. But again, we see the problem with populism and ultra-rights coming to power in every almost country. It's not about Germany. And Germany, like if you watch the elections to Bavaria, in the Bavaria, that was the first and biggest kind of bell to be rang. But we see the same in Slovakia, in maybe Romania, in other countries. And I think it's going to be a big challenge for all of the nations, not only in Europe, but across the world. Thank you.
Thanks, Sasha. Sergey.
I believe peacekeepers is possible scenario. I joined the talk. I had this conversation with Swedish Prime Minister, and I had the proposal that maybe Swedish peacekeepers can be based in Poltava, the Ukrainian city, which was city to fight for by Swedish troops and Russian troops in 18th century. So if you see the proposal of French president, it looks like possible peacekeepers will be present not on the front line, not on the contact line, but in some cities 100 plus kilometers away, kind of 70 miles away from the front line, which are quite safe. At the same time, possible to access the front line within 1-2 hours. So it's possible. It's one of the missions Ukrainian president can accept because it will let Ukrainian soldiers to have some time for recovery, to recollect themselves, to have some rotation and so on. But I cannot say how much time will it take to collect these troops and which countries will join it. Just from latest statement of President Macron in White House, it can be very wide mission of European and non-European countries. I think it's good that we have such discussion. We were ready for this discussion 2-3 years ago. Finally, we have some implementation. As always, our partners are a little bit slow with this. Always, when Ukraine asked for Patriot system, it was provided only after two years. When we called for fighter jets, it was provided after 2 years, and so on. And let's talk about European leadership. I believe there is only one leader in Europe now. The name of this leader is Volodymyr Zelenskyy, Ukrainian president. And this person shows the whole Europe that you can be strong, you can resist nuclear powers, you can stay on your values, you can defend these values, made Europe successful project of generations. I cannot say when Ukraine joined European Union. Today we had Lithuanian president made some proposal Ukraine to join European Union in 5 years with very specific date. It's good that we have more and more this very focused on deadline discussions about this. But for sure, Ukraine should be part of European Union and maybe one day of European system of collective security. On disinformation, the impact of Russia disinformation is still not so big, but more than a year ago. Unfortunately, X is very, very good with Russia's information. When I see some statement or some fake news shared by Elon Musk, I'm shocked. It's so primitive, so badly done fakes, and then shared by this gentleman for millions of his audience. Like Zelenskyy, defense ministry accused in buying a chalet and the vineyard in France for $46 million, which is fake. Zelenskyy is accused in buying of Adolf Hitler Mercedes car, which is fake, and so on and so forth. How such be possible in I don't know, in US, which was always the flagship of resistance of Russian propaganda, but now very, very big part of your society is under the influence of this Russian propaganda delivered to their eyes by American opinion leaders like Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, and so on. What to do with this? Maybe it's a task for you, dear friends. By the way, thank you very much. I saw the audience full of people. I saw people in comments saying that they had in Bulgaria some events to support Ukraine. Thank you very much for this. We very much appreciate it, and please stay with Ukraine as long as you can.
Thanks, Serhiy. And Lesya.
There were also questions in our Zoom chat, so I will allow myself to answer at least to one of these questions from the Zoom chat. The question was how Russians can adopt Ukrainian children who were separated with parents, because it's not possible according to Russian legislation. The answer is they did. Among these 20,000 of Ukrainian children who were legally deported to Russia, we have children whose parents were killed by Russians, but they still have relatives who want them returned home, or parents who were arrested by Russians. And these children also supposed to be adopted by Russian family. You can Google and find very easily the beautiful film of the Ukrainian project, which is title is Return Me to My Dad. This is a story of Yevgen Mezhevy, who were separated with his 3 child when he didn't manage to pass filtration and were jailed in filtration camp, and how his 3 children were started to be adopted by Russian families, and how this story will end. Second question about peacekeepers. I totally agree with everything which my colleagues told previously. I just want to emphasize as a lawyer that it's very important to know the mandate of these peacekeeping missions, because we remember the role of peacekeepers in Srebrenica or in Rwanda, and how inefficient and useless they were in order to prevent genocide, which happened in Srebrenica and Rwanda. And third, about fake and disinformation, and generally the problem with our digital reality, where people start to spend more and more time. It's not just Ukrainian problem, it's very common problem. Now we have a situation that this digital reality is polluted. And people start to lose their ability to make distinction between lie and truth. And now it's led to a situation that even people from the same small communities, they have no shared reality anymore. But without shared reality, we have no common actions. Without common actions, we can lose our freedom and democracy. So this is a real threat. And as I hope that humankind will elaborate some recipe how to deal with it. Thank you.
So let me just say 3 things in closing. First, for more, the Ukrainian Stanford Association has a demonstration at 5 o'clock at White Plaza, so be sure to attend that. I'll be there with other people, and we'll talk more about this gentleman's question of what the United States should do. Second, I will follow up. We do need to talk about that, and give us your ideas about other things that we should be doing here at FSI and CDDRL. I feel like this moment is urgent, like our colleague said, and so we look to you for things that we should be doing more in terms of our own community here. And then finally, I only see 2 of you. Oh, there's Sasha, I see her. Tell Honcharuk, if you see him on my behalf, it is just a real honor and privilege to have you as part of our Stanford community. You are all Stanford alums. You make us proud. And events like this remind me of why it is important to sometimes analyze problems, but sometimes also to try to solve problems. So thank you all for being here today with us. Slava Ukraina!